Sports are great because they don't have much of a barrier to entry. And that's the great part about wrestling. That barrier of entry is a very, very, very steep wall. What's up, guys? It is Mighty Q here with Mighty Q's Locker. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about wrestling and some of the things that make wrestling so great. So sit back, kick back, grab your popcorn, grab your Powerades, your Gatorades, whatever it may be. Let's get down to it at why wrestling is so great. So I started today's show off today with the barrier of entry. And for me, that with wrestling, I think is partially what makes it so great. So there's not many sports that have weight classes. And when you look at those weight classes and you look at the competitions for them, they're still very spread out. Powerlifters don't have a powerlifting competition every single week with, a partial competition 2 days before, the big competition every week for, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. And that's the biggest thing with wrestling. And that's the one thing that changes versus every other sport. Because with MMA, with boxing, with any other combat sport that you're in a weight class, and whether you cut weight or not, whether you make that weight class or not, it's a very limited competition schedule. Versus with wrestling, you go through extreme weight loss in these fluctuation of a 3.5 day window of when you decide to cut weight, and the methods and things that you do to cut that weight for those 3.5 days are terrible for your body. They're terrible for you at the moment. They're the most immediate, right then, in the moment, quick fixes that you can find. The funny part, we were joking about it today at the gym. The fact that there were days when someone had said, hey, make sure you take a quick shower so that way your body doesn't start reabsorbing the water. When you get to that level of cutting weight, and you get to that level of, hey, your body is going to resort to taking the extreme measures, and that thing that coats the outside of your body, which is skin, is a working part of the body and will take the needed functions as so to make sure that the body can function. So, hey, make sure you take a quick shower because that water that's running over the top of you, hey, your body's going to try to reabsorb some of that. And at this moment where you're at right now, hey, yeah, you're pretty close. You can't take enough of a risk. It's like, that's insane. Or the fact that, the multitudes of water bottles that were filled up with spit and the color tied that to whatever artificial dye for that type of gum, for that flavoring, for that day, does the same thing to that spit that fills that cup. It's this warm liquid that you would think is some pre-workout mixture because it foams at the top and the liquid underneath, and it has a terrible coloring because the dye in the gum that you're chewing, whether it be 5 Gum or Bubblicious or whatever it may be, all it does is it just stains the saliva. And you just sit there and chew and spit and chew and spit to lose weight so you can compete and wrestle 2 pounds lighter than what you currently weigh, or 5 pounds lighter than what you currently weigh, or 10 pounds lighter than what you currently weigh, or 15 pounds lighter than what you currently weigh. and you do this every single week in a 3.5-day turnaround. I'll tell you how I cut weight. Monday morning, wake up, and so this was my freshman year in high school when I did it the dumbest way I've ever thought of, and it was absolutely ridiculous because I lied to my mom essentially every time she asked me what I weighed because I didn't want her to know how much weight I was cutting. So freshman year was kind of brutal, and what I did was stupid. So I'd wake up, I'd have a bowl of organic Cinnamon Crunch cereal. I'd pack a bag of Crispex, fruit snacks, and a water bottle for lunch. And I'd go to school. I'd be at school from 9 to 2 or 9 to 2:30, practice from 3 to 6, and then go home for about 30 minutes, eat either half a chicken breast or a full chicken breast. Most of the time it was half a chicken breast. And there were some days where it was another bowl of Cinnamon Crunch cereal. But there was also a lot of days where I didn't even go home after I got picked up from high school practice. So from 3 to 6, we would then go straight to, so on Mondays and Tuesdays, I went straight from practice at 6, and I went to my club team practice. That was at 6:40 or 6:30. And from 6:30 to 8:30, I was at club practice. And then there was days that I would go to 24-hour fitness after that at about 9, depending on what I weighed. And yeah, I would either have half a chicken breast and some rice. I would have a can of tuna and some rice, or I'd have a bowl of Cinnamon Crunch cereal, because for me, it was easier to get the calories as just dead calories at the end of the night to make sure that my body had the needed calories. So it was like I was okay with getting it through, cereal, and I had no knowledge of nutrition. I mean, I was 14 years old. Like, what did I know about what I was doing? I had no clue about the correct way to diet. I mean, at that time, like, my body's still trying to grow. Like, it doesn't. When you're growing at the rate that you are as, a male teenager, like, it's just about eating calories. And for me, I was doing the exact opposite. I was growing rapidly, and I felt it in my knees, my back, my ankles. Like, I used to go to the chiropractor 3 times a week just based on the fact that, like, my back always hurt. And, like, yes, I've played sports and I've done a ton of things, but, like, I cut weight for a long time and did it poorly. And I did it during a time when I knew my body was growing. And it was a lot of pain, because I was, like, I'm just under 6'3" now. I was like 5'7.5" my freshman year of high school. The fact that Monday morning I'd step on the scale, and I wrestled 120 my freshman year, but Monday morning I'd step on the scale, and at the beginning part of the season, I was it was kind of like, it started at about 130, you get that initial, because when I stepped in the room after fall season of golf, it was August, September, and the beginning 2-3 weeks of October. Like, I went to wrestling the 3rd week in October is when I switched over from golf to wrestling. And I was about 140. And I remember I was at like 138 at the start for weight certifications. And I got down to, I don't know, it was like 131 or something like that. And so I was able to wrestle 120 by whatever that first tournament date was. But that weight certification was in like September, so I was fine. And Monday morning at the beginning part of the season in November and December, I mean, I was either 130, 131, or 132. And that was, Monday morning, hadn't done anything yet. And as the season kind of progressed, and especially after January, you get the 2 pounds. So 120 became 122, which means, oh, well, I don't have to hover at 132 anymore. I'm now going to hover at 134. And it's just, it was ridiculous. I would cut that amount of weight every single week, and all wrestlers do it. And why? Because it's part of the sport. And it's part of the sport, but it's a part of it because we've all decided to make it a bigger part of it. We don't take into account that wrestlers have died cutting weight, and yet we all still do it. We get in saunas with 3 layers of stuff on. You're wearing a shirt, a t-shirt underneath with a long sleeve, a sweatshirt, pair of leggings, double sweatpants, double socks, all tucked in, hood up, towel, and you're just fully insulated, and you're just sitting in a sauna, and you're getting all the fluids out of you. And then the time that you're not sitting in the sauna, you're wearing all of that same gear, and you're going through the intense 3-hour practice where, you have your warm-up that gets any regular person dying. Then, because it's the middle point, well, I'll go with the middle point of the season, and at that point you're not really doing too much technique stuff. You're getting right into drilling right after you get warmed up, and so you're rocking for drilling and doing some hard drilling for a couple hours, or not a couple hours, but a good chunk of time. And then whether you're going live or you're doing situations, but whatever you may end up doing, you're doing all of that while not going to get breaks for water, because hey, I'll go in 20 minutes when we get another break. Like I need it more then than I do right now. And you start delaying the gratification of hunger, of what you feel. I remember, I'm at to the point now, I can flip it on and off relatively like a switch. If someone's like, hey, do you want to go grab food? I'm like, sure, let's do it. And I can be hungry right then. Yep, sounds good. And at the same time, if I'm kind of hungry and I know I'm busy doing something, I know it's going to be a few hours, that's something I flip a switch in my mind, it doesn't even register anymore. It's I'll make sure to grab food after I'm done with this. And that's about it. It's not oh man, I just really need some food. Oh my gosh. I can just, oh my goodness, all I can think about is food. Oh man, no, that's what wrestling did to me. Now, I could care less. Work out really hard and not give your body nourishment. That was my life. So, pulling 2-a-days now and doing some of the workouts that I'm doing, and you get busy, you miss a meal, and you kind of get things rolling. It's to some degree it kind of feels normal. And it's kind of a bad thing when you start feeling like normal is this crazy level intensity workouts, and just seeing how much the body can be pushed to its limit. because that's the best part about wrestling. So all of this about cutting and doing these crazy things and, hey, why do we do it? It's because it's the barrier to entry. So like I talked about, the Monday morning being 12 to 15 pounds, somewhere in that range, depending on what time of the year it was. By Tuesday morning, I'd normally have it down to anywhere between 5 to 9 pounds, and by Wednesday morning, I was normally within 3. And Thursday morning, I was either on weight or I was always within a pound. Thursday, if we had a dual Thursday, I was always within a pound that morning when I woke up. So by the time practice rolled around and we had a basically light drilling session, just going through a warm up to get stretched out before weigh-ins, and that's the way that I did it. Most of the time, I was on weight by Thursday at lunch, and then Friday I would normally be, because I never let myself get too much Thursday night. It was always like a peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter and honey sandwich and a protein bar or whatever to get a mass amount of protein without much calories, just to give myself as much fuel as I can. And Friday, if it wasn't a 2-day tournament, then it was, well, I try to stay within a pound, 2 pounds sometimes, but it was always less than 2. I never let myself get higher than 2. So that way Saturday morning, I never had to cut Saturday morning. Like I did all the things I had to Friday night, so that way I'd go to sleep, wake up Saturday, and hey, I know I'm weighing in. So if I go to sleep on weight Friday, I know I wake up, I'm good, show up, and boom. Never missed weight, ever. It's the only thing you can control. But that's the barrier to entry. Everyone does those things when you do it for long enough. And it wasn't until I wrestled at UNT and I wrestled 197 pounds and I weighed 191 pounds at the first tournament, and I hadn't actually practiced or wrestled other than the one tournament I wrestled my junior year and the one tournament I wrestled my senior year. It was the same tournament, and I did it the one year. I did it the same year the next year. I was like, hey, why not? I did it last year. So like, hey, shits and giggles, let's have some fun. So I hadn't practiced. I went and played golf my freshman year. I hadn't been working out. I wasn't in shape. I wasn't whatever. I weighed 191 pounds. I had been to 2 wrestling practices in the last 4 years. And I showed up, and because I was fresh and I was rested and I wasn't like drained out. I mean, like, yes, it was more like my lungs were on fire because it was, hey, I was out of shape. It wasn't, I was so drained that I couldn't move. That's the difference between exhaustion and being out of shape. When I was wrestling, that was exhaustion. You strip your body of as much fluids as you can. You do these rigorous workouts. You take these terrible nutrition plans. And you do it all because you want to make weight. You do it because you love the sport. And so you put yourself through hell. So that way, come Saturday morning, when you step off the scale and you've made weight, you get this surge of energy and this instant weight off your shoulders of, thank God it's over. You get some food. You know you're fine. You rehydrate as much as you can, even though it's not very much. You stuff some food in your face, and you go warm up. You get ready for the day, and you just get to enjoy the fun of the sport. The competition has nothing to do with wrestling. The competition is entirely in making the weight. And the reason I say to not cut weight, and the way that I recommend people cut weight, is go get in shape and first stop eating processed foods, and you don't have to be 100% zero, but 90% just eat real foods like fruits and vegetables and meat. And that's exactly what I've done. Pastas, you can find just they use real ingredients. Cut out most of the processed oils and seed oils and stuff. Just natural stuff that that your body knows the natural code of. You get yourself in cardiovascular shape. You get your body in a diet sense shape, because diet isn't about losing weight. Diet is just what you eat. So if you eat a healthy diet and you eat real foods, then you level out this maintained weight because you shed off a bunch of weight, and that is your new level. And so once you kind of level out, you can stay there. Whatever that level out is that you kind of hit the floor at, and that should be your walk around weight, you should only go 3 to 5 pounds under that. After that, don't do it. It's not worth it. I'm sitting here today telling you it's not worth it. It's a blast. It's fun. It's whatever. You think you have the added advantage. You think that it's going to make you so much better. You're going to whip the competition's ass. I'm telling you right now, it is not. Having wrestled 12 pounds under what the weight class limit number was, and being rested and well nourished and better correctly nourished, I wrestled better than I had wrestled before. Now, I was rusty as all can be. I made a bunch of stupid mistakes based on the fact that I just had resorted to bad habits, because good technique doesn't stay around. If you don't use it, you lose it. So that's my recommendation in terms of that. Get a healthy diet, eat real foods that aren't processed. Do that and just maintain that for the rest of your life, because everyone wants to gripe and complain, and they're well, I don't want to eat apples because there's too much sugar in it. It's are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? You're not gonna eat an apple because it has too much sugar in it, but yet you're gonna go and get the gummy worms and the whatever candy and Skittles and everything else, and you're gonna drink pop and everything else and say, oh yeah, there's too much sugar in an apple. Give me a fucking break. Real foods, your body knows the chemical breakdown for. So an apple, yes, has a bunch of sugar, but that sugar comes with the outside skin on the apple is very fibrous. So it takes a lot of effort for your body to break it down. So it isn't just an immediate shot of sugar into your bloodstream. So it takes time for your body to process it, and it knows the makeup code of that sugar because it's real, it's not processed, it's not fake. So your body knows what to do with it, and it can actually break it down, and it gets processed, and it comes into your bloodstream in a more steadily fashion. But the makeup of what an apple is good for your body, versus the chemicals and nonsense and made up things that were created to then create a separate food aren't good for you. So when you eat a healthy diet, you finally get to a point where you'll find you shed off a bunch of weight and you'll hit a floor. And that floor turns into your walk around weight because you just maintain that, because people talk about, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds super fast. there's no such thing. It's not healthy. It's not maintained. Sure, you can lose 30 pounds right now, but I guarantee you're going to put that 30 pounds right back on the minute you actually lose all the weight because you're not changing anything. Eating fast food 5 times a week isn't good for you. Too many people eat fast food regularly. Too many people eat so many processed foods regularly, and it was me. When I was working at Capital One, I ate out 3 meals a day. I went from someone who was in shape to, and roughly 175 pounds to, by the time I first moved to Fargo and kind of started lifting and still eating whatnot, I got to 230. Like 230 was my biggest. It was 230.0, and I was like, oh yikes. And that was finally when I saw myself in the mirror and I saw how round my face was. I saw the gut that I had. I saw the way that my arms were just big. They weren't defined. They were just laced. It was just fat encased. They were not toned. I was unhealthy. I was not in cardiovascular shape. My knees hurt. My back really hurt because I was carrying all this weight. And I was carrying it poorly. I had to change the way I ate. I had to change the way I worked out. I had to change the way that I did things. Because I want to be able to actually live my life and I want to be able to enjoy my life. And so for me, I cut out basically all processed foods. 90% of what I eat is real food. Fruits, vegetables, meats, pastas. That's it. Rice. 90% of what I eat. And I used to drink pop like a fiend. Now I drink water and liquid IV. Making those changes has made me a healthier person. And because of that, I saw how unhealthy my habits were when I was wrestling. I saw how unhealthy it made my mental state and my physical being when I was going through those extreme conditions. The absolutely exhausted, wrung out 14-year-old body with 3 layers of clothes on, sitting in the sauna for 30 minutes after I was on the elliptical for an hour. It's interesting. And wrestling has its own weird way of still being kind of cool. Everyone does it. No one cares about the warning signs. I say this because I tell people the warning signs because I don't want them to do what I did, but I know people are going to do what I did because I did what I did when people told me, hey, you shouldn't cut weight. So if you're going to do it, at least do it smart. Do it by eating real healthy foods and do it on an actual, well planned out nutrition plan. Don't do it on some yo-yo, hey, I'm going to lose 15 pounds in 3 days. Don't do that. Because you do that every week, it turns into a cycle. And it makes you miserable. Well, that was the long show. But hopefully you guys were able to get a bunch of value out of that and something that has just kind of been on my mind. So, as always, if you like the show, I just ask if you can share the show with a friend because you never know what a another ear might do. And if you enjoy the show, then there's probably a chance that someone else might be able to enjoy it as well. I hope I was able to help someone out there today. I hope that you guys are being awesome. That's going to do it for me. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Mighty Q is out.